All right, welcome to another episode. Today, I have one of my very favorite women with me. She's also a colleague and a friend, and I just dearly love her. This is Miss Kaylynne Gasiorowski, and she's amazing. I should say Dr. Kaylynne Gasiorowski. She's a chiropractor in Omaha. Her and her husband have a private practice, and they do all sorts of amazing things. So if you are in the area of Omaha, you should definitely check them out. And you also have another business, Kaylynne. What is that?
Uh, well, I have a lot of them. I have a medical billing company, and then I also handle detox with clients as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So you can see Kaylynne is a crazy busy mama of 3 girls, and she has a busy life, and she's on a mission to change the world in a toxic world, raise kids in a toxic world, and just shift women's health in general. So that's going to be our topic today. I'm kind of on a rant today, so I asked Kaylynne
I love it.
she would have a conversation with me because I just had a conversation with a beautiful woman in my life, and she's like, my gynecologist just said that, what was it? I wrote down the quote, so we'll read it. You're just going to have a wild ride that you're just going to have to go through. And I'm like, she's like, can you help me? Yes, I can help you. Nobody will run any blood work for her because she's perimenopausal. So until she stops having her period, nobody wants to run any blood work for her.
Yeah.
And that just kind of jazzed me up and put me on a rant with women's health. I don't know. How does that make you feel, Kaylynne?
Well, one, I just have to say thanks for having me.
Yes.
But also, I like fired up Laurie. So this is fun for me. Like, I like it when Laurie's fired up. But no, I mean, I share the same frustration that you have. We, in our clinic here in Omaha, we help a lot of people with weight loss. And so one of the most common things that we hear from women is that, my hormones are jacked up and I'm stuck, my weight's stuck, and then it makes me upset and depressed. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And they've gone to other providers and no one will give them answers and they don't know what to do. It's kind of like, just suck it up until you're past menopause, and then you're probably never going to be how you want to be. It's like,
yeah, you're just going to gain weight. You're just going to be depressed. You're just going to have mood swings. You're just going to
be angry.
You're just going to never sleep well again.
Yeah. Yeah, so totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think your frustration is not only shared by me, but by millions of women around the world, or definitely here in the US, I know. That it's just like there aren't a lot of great answers for them or a lot of great resources, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be that way. I feel like when we walk into a medical provider's office, like they only hear a piece. So totally. It's just a piece. So if you are having hormone disruption, you feel like you're on this wild roller coaster. And I'm sure most of the women listening, like, I have felt like I have lost my freaking mind sometimes.
Oh yeah, right? Absolutely.
And it's hormones. But our hormones don't get tested.
Right.
Right.
And a lot of times they don't even get tested right. So I know, like, one of the tests that I like to use, and I think you like to use a lot, is that dried urine test, right? Which is testing over 24 hours. So it's testing it multiple times, because there are certain times of the day where we know that certain hormones might be a little bit lower when you wake up and might rise at a particular time of day. So a lot of times you go into your medical provider and maybe your appointment's at 9, maybe your appointment's at 2. What time is your appointment at, right? They don't really pay attention to that. They just take blood work or they take a sample, and it's like, that's the only time of day they're testing it. And that's what they're going off of. Exactly. Versus just the accuracy of doing a dried urine challenge is huge, because you're getting that full 24-hour picture. You're making sure it's during the right time of the month for the woman to take it. Yes. So you're getting such a better picture into what their hormones look like. And that, I think, can be super misleading and frustrating in general, is that those tests aren't even necessarily accurate for that particular woman.
No, because if you're taking a test around ovulation time, your progesterone and estrogen may look fantastic, right?
Totally.
And then you're like, another time in the month, you're like, you're a mess.
Yeah. So then, of course, you're like, am I crazy? Because I swear I have symptoms, but they're telling me everything's fine. Yeah. But it doesn't feel fine. And my advice is always to trust your gut and get another opinion, because you're probably right.
You're probably right.
And you're not crazy. And there probably is something going on with your body that you can get help for if you see the right person, right?
Exactly. And I know you do the same thing. Like we detox women just
Absolutely.
depending on the time of the month. Like when you're having your period or right before your period, I'm not going to put you on a heavy metal detox protocol because
Right.
that's when your body is ready, getting ready to shed. It's getting ready to do its own detox. So I don't need to push anything else on you. You know, as our friend Minnie Pels always says, if we put all the women in the world in one room around ovulation time,
Oh my gosh,
we could solve all the world's problems and we wouldn't have any issues anymore, right? Because that's our peak time.
Yeah.
And
thinking
so
clearly. Yep.
yeah, we have this ebb and flow. We have this dance as women. And I think we really need to have a lot more conversations like this to let people know that they're not crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important also for women, and I've been definitely guilty of not keeping track, but just knowing where you're at, like during the month or in your cycle, and going like, normally when my kids argue, it doesn't bother me that much, but today it's like nails down a chalkboard. Why am I getting so agitated? And then you're like, oh wait, what is today? Where am I at in my cycle? Oh, okay, this is normal. So just even noticing sort of like where you are in your cycle and understanding your hormones is so powerful for women. And a lot of women are very oblivious to it.
Right.
I know for me, my lifestyle is so busy most of the time that sometimes I'm like, wait, am I due my cycle already? I feel like I just had it. I'm like, no, it actually has been. So I've been guilty before of not really keeping religious track of it. And then I'm like, why do I feel like my hormones are out of whack? And I'm like, oh yeah, because they're supposed to be, it's that time of the month, right?
Exactly.
I think just women in general having more of an understanding of what that natural monthly cycle is like for their moods, for any of that, for feeling kind of sluggish, for, they need to give themselves a little more TLC during this time of the month, etc., would be huge.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head is tracking because we can't change what we don't track, right?
Right.
So I don't know what app you use. I use Clue. It's a free app. And all you really need to do is put when you bleed and then you just kind of follow it.
Yeah.
Put when you bleed again. And you can do more things on there too. But just so if you've never tracked your cycle before, this is a practical tip, all you ladies out there. Get the app or something similar and just okay, so day 13 to 15, I'm probably ovulating, right? If you're still a fertile woman. And so you're going to feel different around that time. And then from ovulation to menstruation, that week before menstruation, your mood is going to change. Your needs, you're wanting to be touched. Like Kaylynne was just saying that her kids like is a nail on the chalkboard right now because okay, so knowing where you are in your cycle, knowledge is power. And so instead of reacting, which you may feel like doing, be like, no, where am I in my cycle? And there's a reason for this. So usually as women, if we know there's a reason why we have these feelings, then we're better able to control our mood, or we can do some specific supplementation or some specific brain support. I have a lot of women. So when I use my amino acid therapy, when we get right before the period, we're increasing some of those amino acids because they just need more during that time. And so learning how to support your body correctly, because we as women are pretty out of tune because like you said, we're so busy. Like we have so many avenues. We're trying to be professional women. We're a wife. We've got 3 kids. We've got activities for the kids. We've got aging parents. We have, whatever it might be.
Totally.
We forget about ourselves. We kind of put ourselves on that back burner of the stove and never turn it on.
I was just going to comment on that. I know for me, like I love my husband. I'm in a loving marriage. Most days of the month I love my husband. Some days I'm like, why are you breathing so? Are you chewing that loud? You might do nothing right on a certain day of the month.
Yeah.
But in general, like we've got a great marriage. We've got 3 kids. But it is as a mom, you are always juggling things. I'm the one that's making sure that my fridge is stocked and my pantry stocked for making school lunches, and I'm making sure that the permission slip is signed for the field trip on Friday. And that, if I can't do school pickup that day, someone else is, and who's taking them to volleyball. It's like all these things. Plus I'm running a business and I'm trying to be a loving wife and I'm trying to make sure my house isn't a total, pit of a mess. So there's like all these things that you're so right. We sort of put like, I don't have time to track my cycle, or I don't have, like, oh yeah, I'm crabby because I'm busy. And, so it is so important to be able to show yourself a little bit of extra TLC and just understand that ebb and flow of your hormones and what's normal, what's not normal, when it is maybe time to do a detox. The other topic that I think is kind of important to touch base on is, you know, now more than ever, we have so many just toxins in our environment.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people are unaware of how certain toxins can absolutely affect their hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those can be carried on for decades from when you were a baby, you know? So just like you mentioned, detoxing, there's a point where you have to understand maybe my how I feel on a monthly basis is not normal. And if I get my hormones tested, there's a way that you can detox and bring those back closer to normal, and you don't have to feel that way.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those things that disrupt hormones. What would you say are the top 3 to 5, Kaylynne?
Yeah. Well, plastics are a big one,
Yeah.
right? So plastics can be huge. And the thing is, plastic is everywhere. So it's, even if you go to the grocery store and you buy your organic blueberries, they come in, guess what? A plastic
container.
Types, right? Yeah. If you buy your bag of organic lettuce, that is coming in a plastic bag, right? Your little container of grass-fed organic meat is coming sometimes wrapped in, you guessed it, plastic. And so some of them are somewhat unavoidable, but just trying to eliminate it as much as possible. Never ever storing your food at home in plastic. Never ever like heating up in plastic, like in a we don't even use microwaves in my house, right?
We don't either.
But if you are someone that uses one, please do not put it in plastic, put it in glass.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think is huge, as plastics. It can also even be different types of chemicals, and that you can get hormone disruption from chemicals that you're cleaning your home with, that are sprayed on your produce or used in certain types of foods. So reading labels, educating yourself on that, making sure that at home you're using the cleanest products you can find. You talked about apps, and there's an app that I use sometimes called Think Dirty.
That's an awesome app. Yep.
Yeah, so that's put on by the EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group. And I recommend, when I'm working with, your dog is like stretching behind.
I know, she's like, so great.
This topic is kind of stressing me out here. I need to rest. Anyway, ADD moment right there.
Yep.
So the app, though, I love it because you can put in, for example, the shampoo that you use and the face wash that you use. So many, the social pressure for women to look beautiful and amazing all the time, and to cake on 14 pounds of makeup, and to use 17 hair products, and to put all the things on them to make sure that they smell beautiful. Like, well, you know, I get it, but there's so many. So women are exposed to so many chemicals every day by just what they're putting on their body, what they're cleaning their house with. I mean, so many, right? And a lot of them can be very hormone disrupting.
Right. Well, we were just at a horse show, my daughter and I, and, you know, there's a vendor booths and all those kind of things. So we were walking by, and, you know, I can't help but like look at vendors, and I want to look at the things, but I don't want to be drawn in. Well, this one lady, she was very good, and she's like, come sit down. And she like basically pulled me into the chair, and all of a sudden I realized I got all this stuff all over my face. And Karina, she's laughing at me, but she was, you know, playing on what you were just saying. Like, she's like putting all this stuff under my eyes and this and that. And she's like, see, don't you look better with less wrinkles? And Karina's like, see, I told you had wrinkles. I'm like, well, I'm going to be 50. I'm going to have some wrinkles. Right. So, you know, I don't care. I don't care if I've got these little lines in between my face, but you know, they were playing on the fact that, you know, we should really care that we've got, you know, stuff going. It's part of aging, right? We want to age well.
Absolutely.
And I want to have the least amount of wrinkles that I can possibly have, but I'm not willing to douse myself every single day with all these toxic products. And when we got done, she, you know, was trying to sell me stuff. And I'm like, I can't even stand the smell of this on my face. And it all started feeling itchy, you know, and all these kind of things. It was just kind of a funny experience, but it is what we don't do to ourselves as women to quote unquote have this perfect face, perfect body. You're going to have probably a little cellulite bulge here and there, you know, as 50. Okay, I don't care anymore. You know, you're going to have stretch marks as you have babies. You know, we make ourselves so toxic with products because we have a toxic view of who we are.
Totally. I think a big, so I'm raising 3 daughters, and
Yes.
that scares the living daylights out of me. Now, mine are still young. They're 8, 6, and 2. But I already lose sleep and think about, and I try to already ask for advice for parents that, like I've asked you before, like,
Yeah.
especially as my kids age, I want to know everything about Karina and how she's grown into such an amazing young woman, because I want to emulate by, people who have done it before in this world today. When I was a kid, we didn't have social media.
Right.
I didn't have a cell phone. So like now all these kids have these phones. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's really big on social media that you have these filters and you take
Mhm.
a selfie from this angle and then this and then this, and it's like, come on,
Yeah.
like this is the standard that we're setting for these kids. So I would also just be cautious that as a mama, I'm very careful to never talk bad about myself or my
Right.
looks or my body ever in front of my girls, ever.
Right.
Because what I say, it's going to stick in their brain like a sponge, and they're going to go, yeah, I also kind of look fat in this shirt, or I also, you know what I mean? Or I don't really like the color of my hair, or they're going to want to change themselves or want to look different. And I hate that.
Yeah.
I don't love the whole social media and like putting these women up on pedestals and giving them this standard that's not even able to be met, right? So I think my biggest thing is like giving yourself some grace. Yeah, I have this, I call this my angry mom wrinkle.
Right.
Got one right there. So when my
I
kids
call
are
it your
driving,
thinking. It's a thinking line. It's
yeah,
thinking.
right. That's my
Wisdom line, Kaylynne.
better one, right?
Yeah.
My concentration one. But
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I'm in my 40s. I'm not too stressed about it. I'm all good. I make sure that and also it's more prominent if I've been super stressed.
Yep.
If I have not been sleeping a lot, that is huge for me. And then if I haven't been following just like a nice skincare routine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm guilty of all 3 of those things, especially in the last few weeks. So that's okay.
Yeah. Because seasons, right? Season.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So sometimes your skincare goes out the window. So
it does.
It's and that's okay, and totally okay. I was thinking about what you're saying is with social media. I can't imagine having social media when we were growing up.
Oh my gosh.
I suffered from an eating disorder for 12 years,
Yep.
and a lot of that was just, I hated my body. And it was just a way that I dealt with stress and stuff going on, with family dynamics and stuff too. But, I carried forth, and I'm not blaming this on my parents or anything, but I wasn't able to let go of it. That, my mom would say, she complained about her saggy arms all the time, or, she was overweight. And so weight was a huge issue in our house. So I never wanted to be that way. I never wanted, right. And I still find myself today, like looking at pictures and like, oh, my arm, I really need to work on my arms a little bit more, and just little things like that. Like, and it occupies my mind. And I hate that. I really, because I've let those things infiltrate how I view myself.
For sure. And I think, whenever we educate patients of ours in our clinic, even on chiropractic and on wellness and on just health in general, we educate obviously a lot about movement, right? And about the spine and needing to move and the nervous system. But we always really explain that there's really 3 big parts of health, and that's moving well, meaning your spine, and then also getting exercise, physical exercise and strength. And then eating well, and that would mean, obviously exactly what it says is eating well, and that can be interpreted differently for a lot of people. But, I know you and I are on the same page with nutrition and fasting and all that. But the third big one is think well. And that's really just looking at, my husband always says, if you said all the negative things that you say about yourself to someone else, they would deck you. Because, like you say, not just me, but he's saying just in general, we all, him included, when you look in the mirror, whatever, just the nasty things that we think about ourselves or say to ourselves in our head, it's just not okay. And so we actually, even with our girls, we have affirmations that we make them repeat every day on the way to school.
That's awesome.
And and it's just like, I don't know, some days I think they just like say it like, okay, whatever, mom. And they just like, let me get out of the car and stop it, and then some days I'm like, you said that too fast. Let's go through them each one by one and go slow, and they're like, all right. But
they're going to remember that forever.
Yeah, just trying from a young age to like give them the confidence and to say, and I always try to tell them, gosh, you are just so amazing. Do you know that? And I try not to always make it about their looks, like, oh, you are just so, and sometimes I will just say, you are just so beautiful. But I'll say inside and out, you have such a great heart. And I try to compliment them on more than just external, because that is what that's like all that society cares about, right?
Yeah.
You have the best heart and be the best person in the whole world, but if you don't look perfect, then I don't want to be friends with you, and it's like, come on, we can't raise our kids this way, but it starts with us, and it starts with our talk in our head, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then when we speak it out, so the Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. And so you can either build somebody up or break them down. You can build yourself up or break them down. So
absolutely,
it all comes down to how we're speaking, not out of our mouth, our thought processes, and then what are we saying out loud. And I love the fact you do that with your girls. It's so great. When I have so many parents will say, my kids just won't get up in the morning. They're grumpy, they're this and that. My kids have never been that way, because I go into their room and I'm like, good morning, beautiful girl. I love being your mama. Everything is affirming. Everything's affirming. Absolutely. And then, I'll sing, well, Carter doesn't live here anymore because he's married, but I'll sing to her just about every morning, so and she always wakes up happy. So how can you not wake up happy when, everybody
treated with love? Yeah, totally. I love that. That's amazing. I'm going to start singing to them in the morning.
Yeah. And they roll their eyes and they cover their heads, but they love it. They love it. She'll say, you haven't sung to me in a while. I'm like, you know what? I haven't. I'm busy in the morning. So then I'll start singing again. And you just gotta be a crazy mama. Just be a crazy mama.
Yep. You gotta do all the things that are gonna just reaffirm how much you love them, how amazing they are inside and out, and all of that, because it can be a rough world out there if you let all the crud in. You just have to be so protective of your heart, your head, your self-talk, and then also your kids. So careful of that.
So for affirmations drive out negative thoughts, right? So the more we affirm, the more love there is. Love drives out hate, right? Light drives out darkness. So the more that we're doing life-giving thoughts and actions and everything in our family, the better off things are going to be. And I think I would love to get back to detox. So we were talking about,
we got a little sidetracked.
No, that's okay, because this is good. This is just, I told Kaylynne, I said, I just want to have a chat, let's just. So we were talking about plastics. We were talking about things you put on your skin. What would be something else?
Well, there are
toxic thoughts, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, totally. There can be, obviously, increased stress can definitely affect hormones. Diet can affect hormones for sure.
So let's talk about that for a second. Like, what would you say are the top 3 things if you're going to cut out of your diet? What would you cut out?
Yeah. So I think there's some controversy around it, but they say that like soy can really affect hormones, and especially estrogen. And so that's something that I've always tried to really avoid, is soy in general. I know back in the day, before I was educated about it, I would sometimes get soy milk in my latte, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that back 100 years ago, I used to do that. But you only, what you know, and you
improve as you grow.
Once you learn new things, all you can do is go up from there, right?
Right.
So that I think is huge. And then for me, we try to eat as organic as possible. We try to eat, we try to avoid GMOs and things like that, because that can really affect your health in general, but it can also affect, more hormones and just toxicity in general.
Right.
And then kind of like I mentioned, I think foods with plastics and foods with preservatives. So reading labels is huge for me. There's a lot of preservatives that can really affect not only toxicity, but hormones in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always try, like in the grocery store, for example, we try to stay on the outside and not really go in the middle, right? Because on the outside is going to be your produce, your vegetables, your fruits, your meats, and the seeds and things like that. Versus in the inside is all the packaged stuff. And listen, I'm a busy mom of 3. Like, we do sometimes need packaged things, and sometimes we're in a hurry and we need something that's quick. And so being able to just read the ingredients. If it's a bunch of words that I've never heard before and I have to Google all of them, I'm probably not going to buy it. Right.
Yeah.
And even knowing that on that label, the first thing that you read is the most prominent in that product. So if that is something sugar containing, that's the first ingredient, probably not going to buy it.
Probably not.
So I think people get really obsessed with just the nutritional label, meaning like how many calories are in this versus actually the ingredients.
Yeah, I always look at the ingredients. I like never look at the nutritional facts.
Yeah,
like, what's in it, and then I might look at some nutrition facts if I want something more lower carb, those kind of things. But
and the other thing that can be more of a xenoestrogen or like mess with your estrogen would be fluoride, which is found in a lot of municipal water, and it's found in most toothpaste. Yeah. So that's one that a lot of people don't know about. And most people are like, wait, so I shouldn't use fluoride in my toothpaste. And so we don't. And I never have with my kids. And we use filtered water in our home. So, it's literally even in the water that you're possibly rinsing your organic fruits and vegetables with, or that you're drinking or your kids are drinking. So those are kind of the top ones that I know I'm missing about 1,000, but
I know, but those we don't want to overwhelm people either. But the fluoride is a huge issue because it really affects your thyroid.
Oh my gosh, for
It
sure.
blocks thyroid receptors, and so the iodine can't get in, and it dispels the iodine, and so we have to be really conscious of those types of things. So if you have a thyroid issue, which means you probably have a sex hormone issue as well.
Absolutely.
That's a huge factor. So not drinking chlorine, bromide, fluoride in your water, not having fluoride toothpaste, and then really cleaning up your makeup, I think is a big deal when it comes to sex hormones.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, lotion.
So
your skin is your biggest organ. Yeah.
Yeah, we had gotten sidetracked on that, but with the Think Dirty app, like you can put your makeup in there, you can put your lotion. I mean, if you think about all the products that women use on a daily basis, if you're just cleaning up, like the products that you're directly putting on your skin, like start there. Like you said, your skin's your biggest organ. It's literally getting absorbed right into your skin, into your bloodstream. So if you're using things that are really toxic and hormone disrupting, it's going to be hard for you to be able to get things back to balanced, right?
Right. And your glands, your hormone glands are very sensitive.
Yeah.
So when you're putting chemicals into your body, that's going to travel to those really sensitive organs. So your hypothalamus pituitary, your thyroid, your adrenals, your ovaries, that's where a lot of those toxins settle. And not to mention just our brain in general. There's so much fat in our brain, and that's where toxins like to go and to hang out. And so that's why it's so hard to get them out of our body. And it takes a long time.
Yeah.
You're not going to get all your toxins cleaned out in 90 days and reset hormone issues you have. It does take years and not months in order for you to have a healthy hormonal body, for sure.
For sure. And you brought up the fact about heavy metals, right? And how that can affect thyroid, it can affect hormones. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they're very, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but they're very uneducated or oblivious about how was I don't have a heavy metal problem. I've never been exposed to heavy metals. Oh my goodness. It's so common, unfortunately. Right. And I think what a lot of people don't know is that heavy metals, certain heavy metal toxicities can be passed down for up to 3 generations. So even if you're perfect, which no one is, and you live in a bubble, which no one does, and you try to avoid every toxin in the entire world, which no one can do. I can. Yeah. Even, you are still inheriting things from your mama and your grandmama. Oh, yeah. So if grandma worked in some factory that had a bunch of chemicals in it, guess what? You're getting that too. So it's always important, especially if there is a hormonal issue, looking to see if heavy metals might have played a role, and you might need heavy metal testing as well to see if there's a toxicity there, and just making sure that you're addressing the issue from the source and doing the right detox to get rid of all that gunk.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's always a reason why your hormones are disrupted. It is not just a wild ride that you have to go through, right? No. You should be able to transition from fertility to perimenopause to menopause well. Not that you're going to have some symptoms, but you should be able to transition well and not feel like you're losing your freaking mind.
Yeah, there will be some bumps in the road for sure. And it is so different for every woman. It's not, gosh, wouldn't that be nice if it was cookie cutter and there was just like a recipe book of like, oh, this is your age, this is where you're at, and this is what you do. And you're like, okay, I'm going to follow these 10 steps to having an amazing menopause experience, right?
Right.
Oh, I wish. But It's so different. Some women it carries on for years. Some are not symptomatic. Some women it happens like that. Some women are super symptomatic. But I think just like you said, using the different types of tools, it doesn't have to be torture the whole time you're going through it, as long as you understand what's going on and you have testing to know where you're at in the cycle of that transition.
Yeah.
And you utilize all the tools that are available to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about my mom. I know, she recently passed away, and I was thinking about her whole hormonal journey. And it was always my goal not to have that same journey.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been really good with that so far. So,
Yeah, totally.
she had a hysterectomy at 38. So she had a lot of like endometriosis, polycystic ovary disease, which they didn't really name back at that time, So she had all that removed. And then she never had any hormones after that. Like there was actually no hormonal support.
Yeah, wow.
So what does that do to a woman with their brain?
Right.
When they go through menopause early. So I'm thinking all these women who have early hysterectomies, usually mid to late 30s.
Oh, for sure.
And I had a client, she's a dear friend of mine now, but they said this is your only option. Actually more than one, but I use this lady as an example. She had really severe breast pain, she'd gained weight, her thyroid was off. To like, well, you need to take your stuff out. And so she got a full hysterectomy. And so a year later, she comes to see me. She's like, I still have all the symptoms and I feel worse and my brain can't function and I can't even clean my house. I can't do.
I've heard this story so many times. Yeah.
Right? Same story. And, we started working together. All of a sudden, like within 3 months, her breast pain was totally gone.
Wow.
That's huge, right? And she would text me. She's like, I cleaned my house today and I didn't have to stop and take a nap.
Oh, it's just the little things, right, that we take for granted. Oh, geez.
Right. And how many women have that same story?
Yeah.
Or, I have another woman that same thing. You got to get it taken out. We can't get your bleeding under control, blah, 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 blah. And so I said, well, if you get that taken out, the symptoms are going to show up in another way for you.
Absolutely.
Right. So it may not look like a heavy period and you feel awful, right? So that's going to be gone, but other pain is going to come on. Something's going to go on with your brain. And that's exactly what happened, right?
Yep.
And so we go back to my mom, she had a hysterectomy at 38 and she'd already had a lot of surgery. So she had a lot of things stacked against her to start with.
For sure.
I really look back at it and see the progressive cognitive decline. And like sometimes I'm like, what is wrong with her emotionally? She would just be like this mess of a woman and not be able to process stress properly. And, it felt like it was like a bipolar issue, depression, anxiety. And that's how it was expressing itself. And so many women come to me that way too. But when we balance things out, you don't have the depression, anxiety, you balance the neurotransmitters, you balance the hormones. Like you just give women a whole new lease on life and then they're not ready to die at 65.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think, for me, I always say like, God doesn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
So he's not going to like accidentally create us with additional body parts that we don't need. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, believe me when I say like surgery, drugs, they do have a time and a place and they can save lives in some instances. Yep. So I'm not saying like, if you've ever taken a drug or had a surgery, then you're an idiot. That's not what I'm saying. But I think we are so quick, especially in the US, to just try to give everyone a drug or a surgery, which is in most cases, unless it's a broken arm surgery. I mean, in most cases in this scenario, it's just band-aiding it.
Right.
You're removing an organ that God put there for a reason because of a symptom that you didn't get to the root cause of. That sucks. Yeah. Because guess what? You remove that organ, there's no going back.
No, you can't put it back in and turn it back on.
Now your body has to figure out how to function without that organ. And just like you said, that symptom's going to show up elsewhere.
Yeah.
The other thing that is interesting, you were talking about your mom, and I had this like flashback to, I remember still when my mom was going through menopause and she went the whole route. This is just normal that you just start on birth control, right? So she just went on hormone replacement and was put on birth control at that time. And she was very symptomatic going through it, and it lasted years for her. But gosh, it's like this is possible without hormone replacement as well. Like it's possible without these drugs that they're giving you to try to say, oh, this is the only way we can, get you to be feel sane is to give you these hormones, and it's not true.
It's not true, because then that increases your risk for certain types of cancers, right? And so
Totally.
we don't want that. We want to balance out that pituitary hypothalamus. We want to balance out the thyroid and the adrenals so that your body can make the proper amount of hormones. So hormones naturally decline, but that doesn't mean they go away. They shouldn't be at a level where you can't function.
Right. For sure. And you nailed it. Like, so many women, including my mom at the time, right? She had no idea that there was any possible long-term side effects. That she just
Right.
was like, I'm symptomatic and this is what everybody does, is they get on these pills. And that's what my doctor said. And so there was never a, by the way, this could increase your risk of XYZ or cancer or whatever down the road, right?
Right.
And so that's just what she did for 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. When I finally, got my mom to let me test her, her hormones, her cortisol, her everything, she was
Yeah.
pretty much flatlined on every single thing. Literally,
Wow.
like she just barely made any hormones at all. She was way below menopausal level, postmenopausal level in
Yeah.
every single area. And she was having so much cognitive decline. And it was to the point where, you know, there was so much work to do that, she couldn't do all the work that needed to be done. And it was just too much.
And
And
she
too
was how old
overwhelming
at
for her.
that time?
What was that?
How old was she approximately at that time?
64.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 65, somewhere in there. And she just died at 69 from 2 years of pretty deep dementia. And
Totally.
so when you don't have enough hormones, your brain can't work as a woman, and you're going
Sure.
to, that's one of the end products is dementia. You just lose it. And I feel like so many times the medical community did such a disservice to her.
Yeah.
Watching her life with over 40 surgeries and all of these kind of things. And it just makes me so sad. And I don't want women to have to go through that. So
No, for sure. It's so important. And I will tell you, a lot of times when people come to me and as far as like a detox realm or,
yeah,
for like functional medicine stuff, a lot of times they've tried almost everything, or they've tried the medical route for years and they're frustrated and they're like, I'm not crazy. Something is wrong with me and I don't know what, but please help me figure it out. And I know
Mhm.
I see the same thing with people all the time. And that it does suck in a way, because it's like, man, if I would have met you
Yeah,
a few years ago, like this wouldn't take as long to clean things up and this would be so much easier. But I'm so grateful that they come to you, to me, to
yep.
our colleagues for these services. But it's interesting because I think more people are starting to as far as like a patient, right? They're sort of advocating for themselves more and thinking outside the
Yes.
box a little bit more. And I think there's more awareness around not just going with immediately what one doctor says right off the bat of like, take this drug or have this surgery. I think more people are trying to explore more options, which is huge.
Yeah.
And I can only hope that it just grows even more from there, right? Because like I said, once you have that surgery or whatever surgery, the damage is done.
Yeah.
Same thing with some of these drugs. I mean, they can really mess up other areas and the damage can be done. And we can still work to help and detox, but some things, can be
Some things we can't
irreversible.
undo. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we were going to outline for women, like what are the things that if they're struggling hormonally, what's the first thing that you would say to do, Kaylynne?
Well, I honestly, for me, I think the first thing is to track your cycle,
Very
to
good.
know where you're at, right? So that's it's free, it's simple.
Yep.
Like most people can make time to do that. So I think the first thing is to like track it.
Mm-hmm.
And once you start tracking it, then kind of like taking notes. It's almost like, if you go to a nutritionist and they say, I want a food diary, this is sort of like a hormone diary, if you will.
Oh,
right?
totally. Yeah.
So you're just sort of documenting, oh gosh, today I was super short with my husband and I had road rage and I just didn't feel like myself, right? Or today I felt like so clear-minded and I could have conquered the world. I could have been the US president today and like done everything, whatever it is, but you're just kind of or today I felt really bloated or sluggish, or I had, whatever you have. I know there's certain times of my month, even like during ovulation for me, where I almost feel like, wait, am I due for my period? Because I do feel kind of bloated and blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, I'm just ovulating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be different for everyone. Some people have a little bit of abdominal discomfort. Some don't even know it. They have no symptoms. So just documenting that, I think, is huge.
Yep.
Because whatever route you end up going, if you end up seeking out professional help, they're going to want that information. And so I think that's super powerful. I think step 3 is kind of educating yourself. I mean, it's very simple on Google to say like women's monthly hormonal phase. So just to kind of show yourself and to know, wait, what is estrogen? And just knowing what times of the month it's supposed to be high versus low and what's normal and not normal. And I think if you month after month are noticing that your symptoms are more dramatic, or you think that maybe there is something wrong, or you're getting to that age where maybe you are premenopausal or something, I think the next biggest step is to find someone who can do some testing, some hormonal testing, and can do it right. And so getting that testing is huge, because it might come back and say that there's really not a big problem here. However, it is powerful to get a test done, because then you have a baseline.
Yep.
So let's say you kind of, or maybe I am premenopausal, but I don't know. And you get tested and you find out, no, I'm actually not. And my symptoms, I mean, it doesn't seem like I have bad symptoms related to hormones. But then maybe they come back to you or me or whoever in a few years. And that time when we test them, we're like, wow, look at how much things have shifted. 3 years or 5 years. And you have sort of like a baseline to go from on that patient,
Yep.
So it can be powerful to get tested, just to get tested sometimes and see where you're at. And it can be super powerful to actually be able to intervene as a provider before, like you said, someone comes and they have like 0 hormones, right? I see this time and time again. I've had it with men and women. Like, a male who's like early 60s had come to me a few months ago, and he literally has like 0. I've never seen a lower testosterone on a Dutch. And he's active and he's retired and he's hiking. They just did Kilimanjaro, and he's like, what do I do? And I've also had it with women where it's like their hormones are totally gone and they're not old. I mean, they're literally like early 40s or something. And it's like, holy cow, this is really early on for this to be happening, right? So I think it's huge to get tested and to just be proactive with it versus waiting until you're super symptomatic and miserable and you've already seen 20 other professionals and you're desperate, right?
Right, exactly.
They'll love you and see you then too.
Yeah, knowledge is power, and then you know why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's just, tracking it, educating yourself, and noting any changes, and then just getting tested. And even if that seems like a proactive test versus I'm super symptomatic and desperate, I think that's huge and almost more powerful sometimes to get tested. I actually did a Dutch hormone test right after I had my 3rd baby, and I was still breastfeeding, just because I was like curious. Like, where is that? And it was just interest, just checking it to see like where I'm at. And then I'm like, oh, I'll do another one after I'm done breastfeeding, But I mean, especially as a mom, we didn't really touch base on this, but there's, we touch base a lot on like, menopause or premenopause, et cetera. Right. But especially as a mom, your hormones are so different when you're pregnant versus postpartum versus breastfeeding. There's so many cycles that a woman goes through. So it is just, you would be doing yourself such a disservice if you didn't educate yourself on that and then seek help from someone who's qualified to test you.
Yeah, because then you know why you're feeling that way.
Totally. And
then you can kind of gauge your moods, and you can, make those shifting. I know every couple of years I'll do a Dutch test on myself, like you're talking about, and to see the progression, from when I first started doing testing, like I really didn't have a lot of hormones. That was in my 30s.
Yeah.
I was kind of a mess. And so then implementing things that we're talking about, and then implementing a lot of detox and, all those kind of things. And even after I had Karina, I was 33, and, they thought that was really old at the time, to have a baby at 33.
Yeah.
But just to be able to track my hormones, since then, and how and I feel better now at 49 than I did at 39. Yeah. Just because I have knowledge and I'm able to shift things for myself.
Totally. 33 was my first baby. And I had my 3rd at 39. So I started, my husband and I met later in life. And once we got married, I was pregnant 10 days later, but it took us a while to meet each other. We dated for a minute, and then we got married, and then it's been like bing, bang, boom. But my 3rd pregnancy, I almost died because I was like in the room and they're like, well, you're technically considered a geriatric pregnancy. And I'm like,
right.
And I was 38 when I got pregnant. I had her at 39. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm 38. You're telling me I'm a geriatric what? And I'm like, no. I'm healthy. I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about. So it's interesting. But I think a lot of it, obviously, they base off of hormones and risk factors and whatnot too, right?
Well, that just tells you how unhealthy we are as a society.
Absolutely.
And in general, hormonally. To
Yeah.
say that you're geriatric at 39.
Yeah.
And that you're at high risk.
I felt like super strong, super confident in my pregnancy, super healthy. Like I didn't have one fear in the world. I mean, I know things can go awry.
Yeah.
Even if you feel great. But I was just like, no, I'm good. I don't feel very geriatric, you know. So it was just interesting to me.
I know, I love it. I love this conversation, Kaylynne.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's good because I mean, women just need to be shown more love, right? There's just, like I said, there's pressure on us, so much pressure and stress to be the perfect mom, the perfect wife, to keep your house clean, to do this, to get the kids everywhere, to feed them healthy food. And then the societal pressure of looking perfect. And I can't believe you have a wrinkle, you know, and your makeup isn't perfect 24/7. And so I think just empowering women and giving them grace and educating them is so important instead of, yeah, well, that's just normal and everyone goes through it. So you just need to deal with it. And the next 5 years are probably going to be hell for you. So buckle up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, buttercup. Yeah, that's my mantra.
Gosh. Yeah, that drives me
not
crazy.
in that anyway. Sometimes it's suck it up, buttercup, but not when it comes to hormones. So let's just touch a little bit on the testing. So there's blood work testing, and then you and I both like to do the dehydrated urine testing. And I think we should tell why that we like that. So what would you say?
Yeah, so I was kind of mentioning, I sort of prematurely started at the beginning, but I think with the dried urine testing, my thought is it's much more comprehensive. It's going to give you a much better snapshot. It's not just one moment of the day, but you're going to get that sort of 24-hour reading. And you have, you're going to get a better snapshot with using dried urine versus blood as well. So I love the dried urine testing. There's many, I mean, I have many people that come to me for detox that have been to other providers and no one is doing dried urine. Like not a lot of people are.
Right.
But
it really gives you that breakdown. So you can make enough estrogen, but if your body doesn't know how to break it down, and that's the beautiful picture of it. So then we can really target those things for people. If you can't methylate your estrogen, no matter how much you're making.
So for the test that you and I do, I love the report because it's gonna tell you the entire pathway of estrogen, the entire pathway of testosterone. So you're not just gonna go, okay, Laurie, you're high on estrogen and you're low on progesterone, right? It's gonna say like why. You're gonna get a bigger picture of why is it high or low and where in the pathway are things going awry. Just like you said, is it not breaking down properly? Which part of this pathway is having trouble? And that gives us as providers a better snapshot to say, oh, so we need to support this part of the pathway. So again, if I just gave you an estrogen pill and I said, you have low estrogen, so here's some estrogen, your estrogen might look higher on a blood test.
Right. But you may still feel like crap.
Yes, you're not going to be normal. Your hormones are not going to be normal. And if I did a dry Dutch test, it's still going to look terrible, right? Because your pathway is still jacked up. So I think it's just really looking so much more detailed at that pathway, where things are going awry and where we can support you in the best possible way.
Yep. I love that. I totally agree on that. So that's why exactly the same reason why we use the dehydrated urine. So
yeah, for sure.
Love it. Any parting words that you want to say to our listeners?
Well, I just speaking on affirmations, I just want to say you're all beautiful and inside and out, right? So looking at the inside and the outside, and I would say you need to be your own boss when it comes to your health and when it comes to just taking control of your health. Yeah. Because nobody else is going to manage it like you will. Nobody's going to care as much as you do. And so, you know, it doesn't have to be this taboo subject of I'm going against what my medical doctor told me to do, or I didn't listen to him or her immediately when they told me to do the surgery or do this. You can still be very respectful and say, I appreciate your time today. And I just want to digest I'm a person that needs to digest everything. And I want to just kind of educate myself on all of this, and I'll possibly schedule that with you soon. And then it's okay to get a second opinion. It's okay to do your own research. I think it's so important to empower yourself with as much knowledge as possible.
Yes.
And just know that if you go a more natural kind of detox route, our bodies were created so amazingly, and they're the most powerful thing ever, right? In chiropractic, we always say we say in general, like the power that made the body heals the body, right?
Right.
And we also, in chiropractic, we talk about ADIO, meaning that we heal from above down and then inside out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that we can't have an external source help us, like if you're in a car accident or had a broken arm, but we're not always going to be the first people to look for a pill, potion, or lotion to solve our problem.
Right.
We understand that a symptom outside is just your body yelling at you saying, hey, something isn't right here and I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if you have a headache, right? You look at what's the cause of that. It's not because you have a lack of Tylenol in your body, right? So taking that Tylenol could get rid of your headache, but that really wasn't the best solution. You have to look at why you have that headache. And that's kind of a silly example, but I think just listen to your body, educate yourself, understand that healing has to come from within. And if you are symptomatic, it is literally your body trying to tell you something and you need to listen to it. And if you're stumped and you're stuck, then seek out someone like Laurie or myself or any of our colleagues that can help you and guide you, do the right testing for you, and lead you to your journey of getting to where you know you deserve to be health-wise, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's it.
That's it. I love it, Kaylynne. Thank you so much for all
you're so welcome. This was
love
so great.
This rant and conversation.
Yeah.
We'll have to do it again.
Zero prepared today, just speaking from the heart. And sometimes that's the best, right?
Sometimes it is. Most of the time it is, actually.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love you, Laurie. Great to see you. Thanks for
I love you too. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, guys.